Radhe Radhe. Today is Saturday, 24th January 2026, and here we are to present to you this recap video for today's Bhagavad Gita study session, continuing along our journey of chapter 12. Along with me, here is Mummy.
Radhe Radhe.
I'll bring up the screen and we'll take a look at the content we covered today. We had the usual recap quiz first for last week's chapter 12, verses 9 and 10. And then today we were able to move ahead into chapter 12, verses 11 and 12. As always, if you take a look at the description for this video, you can get some helpful links that'll take you to free material for your added review and benefit. All these slides, the quiz questions, supplementary material, the videos, and so on. So please do take a look, and that is for your learning progress. With that, let us get into chapter 12, verse 11.
अथैतदप्यशक्तोऽसि कर्तुं मद्योगम् आश्रितः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं ततः कुरु यतात्मवान्.
So chapter 12, verse 11, the catchphrase here is renounce results. As we saw in the class session, this is now the fourth of the verses that began with chapter 12, verse 8, where Sri Krishna is presenting this logical sequence of how one can get welfare. If one step or activity that he suggests is difficult, Sri Krishna gives another one. If that's challenging, he gives another one. And so finally, we get to this one, chapter 12, verse 11, where Sri Krishna says that if we cannot even work for him in devotion, then please just work nevertheless, but try to be detached from the outcomes and the results. Renounce the fruits of those actions. He's not saying that they are to be, for the pleasure of the Lord, like was in chapter 12, verse 10 from last time, devotedly working and performing service for Sri Krishna. But here, chapter 12, verse 11 is about working, performing our usual tasks and duties, but renouncing the fruits of one's actions. And so, as Swamiji explains over here, these are all these different means and ways for our own welfare and benefit. Sri Krishna has been telling these to Arjun. In some situations, if someone is not convinced about his or her relationship with God, or they have not yet made God realization one of their goals, one of the goals or purposes of their life, then this is that fourth alternative, nevertheless, for the person's welfare. Detachment, again, remember, is to not be focused on the outcome or results. We're not seeking those rewards. We're not working for rewards. We are detached from those results. If we can further then just be detached that way, we are renouncing those fruits. And that'll help us elevate ourselves from the concept of the three gunas. We will rise away and above from tamas, the mode of ignorance, rajas, the mode of passion, and fall into that stage, that mode or guna of goodness, sattva. Eventually, of course, as we mentioned, we do seek God's grace to be bestowed on us and his guna, which is shuddha sattva. This way, we can renounce those results. Our mind and intellects, as Swamiji says, become more and more purified. We can understand our goal, our purpose of life, and then comprehend all that transcendental wisdom, and then eventually keep on moving from one level to the higher levels of our sadhana. Let us take a look now at chapter 12, verse 12.
श्रेयो हि ज्ञानम् अभ्यासात् ज्ञानाध्यानं विशिष्यते ध्यानात् कर्मफलत्यागः त्यागात् शान्तिरनन्तरम्.
So, chapter 12, verse 12, the catchphrase here is a question: mechanics or meditation? We've seen the answer. Mechanical ritual practices, fine, they give some benefit, but even better than that is the cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Even better than that is meditation. But in fact, even beyond meditation, we have now learned it is about renouncing those fruits of our actions. So, something again for you to think about in terms of the sequence and the aspects offered by Sri Krishna for welfare, mechanics or meditation. Here he does say that better than each is the next, and so on. He concludes by saying that if we can renounce the fruits of our actions, then peace immediately follows such renunciation. Swamiji gives the humorous example of people performing rituals such as pujas for their new car, etc., but not really taking it seriously, not paying attention. For them, devotion is something that was just told to them or passed on generation by generation. Nevertheless, it is something that they're doing versus doing nothing that is religious or spiritual. So there is some benefit in engaging in those ritualistic practices. If in fact they can go even better, the next step is that they can cultivate spiritual knowledge. This knowledge, of course, is going to be theoretical. There are lots of gains to be obtained from that. And of course, one understands the purpose of life, that we seek to be God realized. But beyond that, if we can actually implement that into practice, then it is important to understand the value and power of meditation, true cleansing of the heart, cleansing of the mind. So that is taking us even closer in our journeys towards God, towards that yoga and union that we seek. And then Sri Krishna says that even better than meditation is if we can move to that fourth aspect, and that is renouncing the fruits of our actions. Again, being detached from all these outcomes and understanding that all the Maya and worldly distractions around us are obstacles and hindrances to our spiritual growth. We ignore them as much as we can, we withdraw from them, therefore, channel our time, energy, and efforts in that spiritual direction. So, beyond ritualistic practices, beyond the cultivation of knowledge, even beyond meditation, it's all cumulative, it's additive. More and more you can do of each kind. And in this last one, renouncing the fruits of our actions, being detached from those results, because alongside, we will also eventually get to a stage where we truly understand the purpose of our life, what we seek. Mummy shall talk a bit more about that, as well as faith and trust in God. Full faith, no doubts, and that purification of the mind, intellect, heart, antahakaran mechanism that comes with all of this. I'll remind us about the flyer we had seen in class. How can you provide order to the outer puzzle to get to the inner one? So if you remember, we talked about these four pieces on the periphery. We have ritualistic practices here on the top left, on the top right, cultivation of knowledge, bottom right, meditation, and bottom left, renouncing the fruits of our actions. Here, as we mentioned, this is meant to be like a trophy or a reward for the work we do, pun intended, apple as an example for fruit, but golden here. It's truly all the outcomes and results of what we do, being detached from them because we are offering them to the Lord in that best situation. If we now understand, of course, this is the sequence, one is better than the next, all the way concluding with this bottom left one, renouncing the results of our actions, then Sri Krishna says, peace immediately follows. So we've ordered or arranged these puzzle pieces, Piece, and we get to this inner resolution, peace, Peace. Peace immediately follows when we've understood that sequence. With that, I shall hand it over to Mummy to talk us through these two verses as well and include some Sanskrit words. After I quickly remind us, of course, about an English word we talked about in class, we've seen before perhaps. You can revisit your dictionaries or add it. Enjoined here. Swamiji says they perform the rituals enjoined by their religious creed. Enjoined means prescribed authoritatively and often with a sense of emphasis. So that is something to put for your English dictionaries. So, Mummy, over to you, chapter 12, verses 11 and 12.
Thank you, Gagan. Very important verse, this verse number 11, because Sri Krishna started giving us some formulas to attain him from verse number 8 onwards. In verse number 8, Sri Krishna said, talked about surrender. Surrender your intellect to me, he said. And then what will you get? You will get Niva Sishyasi. Niva Sishyasi means that you will always live in me. Hmm? That is what Sri Krishna said. Then, so we thought that that is the best alternative he is giving. Next, he said that you start practice. Practice means abhyas yogen in verse number 9. He said, with abhyas yogen, through repeated practice, you remember God with devotion. So then what will happen? You will get mam ichhaptum. That means mam ichhaptum means all your desires will be attained. So we thought that this is little lower than the first one. Then in verse number 10 he said, doing all for God. Mat karma paramaha. Whatever you do it for God only, Sri Krishna only. So what will happen then? You will have siddhim avapsyasi. That means you shall achieve the stage of perfection. And now he says, renunciate the fruits of action. Right? So we thought it is coming from top, less, less, less. But here, then, when we read these two verses, we realize that this is the best option and the easiest option to renunciate the fruits of your action. So let's understand this. How does you renunciate? When you think that you don't have to get anything, then sometimes you can say, oh, why should I do any work also? But no, Krishna is saying, work you have to do. Don't give up your karma. But you have to be situated in self. And what is that word? Yatatmavan. Yatatmavan, yata atmavan. That means you be situated in the self. How do you be situated in the self? What does that mean? That means ki you have to have detachment from the fruits of your action. You have to have detachment from desire. And how will you have that? You will have that only when all your mind and senses are under your control. When your mind and senses are under your control, then it is easy to renunciate the fruits of your actions. Because if your mind and senses are not in control, that means your mind and senses will keep on thinking about all those desires. And then it will be very difficult to renunciate the fruits of your actions. So you have to be situated in the self. What is self? Self is the individual soul. And individual soul is the part of that supreme soul. And what is happening? The ultimate reward that we are all looking for is happiness. But we are not realizing where our happiness lies. We think our happiness lies in these objects of material world. But if we understand very carefully, our individual soul is wanting to be attached to that supreme soul. And that is when we'll get the ultimate happiness. So then, what does it mean? That we have to learn to work selflessly. We have to stay away from desires, which is the enemy. So the nature of self is that it is always wanting to get that supreme happiness. So, which means the individual soul is the part of Supreme Soul, and that self is always looking for happiness, and that happiness comes only from God realization. So, what we have done, we have severed our relationship with God. Why? Because all the time we are into self motivated activities. We have to remind ourselves. Yatatmavan means we have to be situated in the self. Like Swamiji gives that example of hand and body, right? So we have to use the Buddhi Yoga, the yoga of intellect, that when this hand wants nourishment, it gets from the body. But suppose this hand becomes selfish and it says, I don't want to serve the body. Why should I feed with this hand to this mouth? I don't want to. Then imagine if the hand is severed, it will not get its nourishment. So how does its purpose is served? Only when it nourishes the body. Okay, so that hand and body connection is very important. The way we have individual soul and supreme soul connection. When it serves the body, it automatically receives the nourishment. Similarly, when we serve God, our interest is automatically taken care of. So that is how we have to make use of our intellect. We don't have to be selfish. We have to satisfy God, do service of God, move away from self motivated activities. So now, how will we know that we are doing service to God? It is only when we will be equanimous. That is how we will understand that we are working for God, because when there is some failure, we will not feel upset. That is when we understand that we are using the divine knowledge and we are in Karma Yoga, and we are dedicating all our actions to God. So that means we are in Mad Yogam. Mad Yogam and Mad Karma Paramaha. That means we are devoted to God and we are doing everything for God. Okay? And um, this is where Sri Krishna is saying that now this is the best alternative and, of course, the easiest. Because once you are doing selflessly all your work, you are not selfish, you are not working for self motivated activities. So, automatically peace will follow. That shanti will come very soon, because now you are not worried about the fruits of your action, whether it is good or bad, whether it is success or failure, whether it is hot or cold, whatever it is, because I am the individual soul, part of that supreme soul. All I am concerned is that I am going to get happiness by dedicating all my work to Sri Krishna. Once I do that, my interest will be automatically taken care of. So God will give me whatever best for me. Okay. So Krishna is saying better than mechanical practice is knowledge, better than knowledge is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of actions, because then peace will follow. And how will that follow? The very important word is Yat Atmavan, that we have to live in, situated in the self. That self is looking for happiness from the supreme soul. That is what we have to really understand in these verses. And these all the external worldliness we have to give up, just do everything for Sri Krishna as in devotion and with our mind connected with God throughout. And that is when purification of the mind happens and we move to Sattva Gun and we really understand the higher level of sadhana. That means when we are not concerned for the fruits of our actions. Over to you, Gagan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mummy. Are there any other dictionary terms you wanted to add for either
So
verse?
let's look at Vishishyate from verse number 12. Vishishyate means better, and Karm Phal Tyagaha means renunciation of the fruits of actions. And
Okay.
verse 11, I said Yatatmavan and Mad Yogam. Mad Yogam means with devotion to Sri Krishna.
All right, that works well. Yep, so that gets us closer to the end of this recap video. Plenty to learn, and hope you all continue revising, reviewing through the material that's available. We look forward to meeting next time. That's Saturday, January 31st, 2026, 8 a.m. Central Time, 7:30 p.m. India time. Till then, thank you so much, and Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.